Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Art Struggles, where you learn to be a more confident artist by watching me struggle to do the same. In the last episode, we learned a trick for teaching yourself anatomy through a little bit of an unconventional method, and on today's episode, we'll be learning how to actually draw human heads using the Loomis Method. I actually learned this through a video from Proko, so I'll go ahead and link that below. They cover the Loomis Method in a lot more detail than I'm going to be showing here, as they do a full 3-part series on it, one on the basics of the Loomis Method, one on using the Loomis Method for more untraditional head shapes, and one for using it to sketch portraits. I'm just going to be showing you the basics here and kind of just speeding the process up just like we did for our last episode. The Loomis Method's rather straightforward. It basically comes down to understanding your proportion lines, most importantly, and then understanding how those fit in with the two basic shapes of the head, which is basically a sphere and this kind of triangle box shape that you'll see me drawing here as well. For today's references, I just decided to use Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Elizabeth Olsen just because. And I'd honestly say that the biggest struggle I had with doing the Loomis Method is just getting my circles down right. I'm used to drawing on a sketch pad, and drawing on a digital tablet where I'm having to look at the screen instead of down at an actual sketch pad is still quite new to me. I'm building up that hand-eye coordination, and I have a lot of practicing still to go, as I imagine many of you out there might be in a similar situation. And in my head, I thought that maybe I could just sit here and practice circles on paper over and over, which I did. I spent quite a while filling page after page of circles, so I felt really comfortable with them. And then when I went to go do that on an actual digital tablet, I found out the hard way that it doesn't transfer over, unfortunately. You really do have to build up the hand-eye coordination, and while some of the skills you can build up by practicing on an actual sketch pad do transfer over some of the basics, being able to draw accurate shapes and accurate lines the way that you want them does only come with practicing your hand-eye coordination by working with the digital tablet. So I'll definitely be spending a lot more time just getting down the basics and getting down that coordination so it becomes a lot easier. But luckily, as I said, I've cut out a lot of the circle practice in this one because no one wants to watch me draw 1,000 circles over and over. One thing you will see that I do a lot here, and as I said, they'll cover it in a lot more detail in the actual Proko video, is those reference lines for proportion. So it's the 3 lines of the brow line, the nose line, and then the chin line. Getting those down is key to being able to kind of do these Loomis methods without having to do all the basic shapes every time. They mentioned in the Proko videos, by the time you get to the end of the series, is you won't always need to draw the Loomis head exactly like this every single time. The goal, much like we learned with the anatomy trick in a previous episode, is you do this method over and over and over until the shapes and the proportion lines are locked into your mind, so that when you draw an actual head, all these lines, all these proportions, all these practices are second nature to you, so you don't have to actually draw them out. They just visually come out in all of your little designs, so you can draw your character more quickly because you can already see these structural lines in your head. You don't have to draw them out every single time. And of course, the basis of the Loomis head is based off of the perfect human head size, and that's not accurate for most people's heads, so learning how to adapt those lines and those proportions to any head is important. I think that the Loomis method is a great thing to practice if you're struggling with getting down a human head and you're trying to kind of figure out what shapes and what proportions you really need to lock it in. I think learning this really got me comfortable with drawing those. I of course still need to work on the shapes of the features, but that'll be for another episode, I'm sure. But I really enjoyed doing this. I think it was a lot of fun, like I said, to kind of still break in my artist block and get back into drawing more regularly, especially now coming off of a vacation where I wasn't able to practice at all for a week. This is a lot of fun. I highly suggest, if you're trying to get into doing anatomy again, if you're trying to get into drawing people for the first time in a while or for the first time period, definitely try this Loomis head method as well as the anatomy trick we learned in the last episode. I'm gonna go ahead and let this play out, sped up here, and we'll check back with you at the end of the episode. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Art Struggles. I'll put all of my examples done here. I did 3 different heads for each of the actors. I think you'll definitely see a little bit of progress in each of them. I definitely have a lot of improving still to go. I think especially with Elizabeth Olsen, her jaw is a lot more defined than I think I showed in some of my takes through it. But a lot more practice with this method, I think I can really kind of get down these basic shapes and be able to adapt the proportions a lot better. So give this a try at home if you're starting to get into anatomy and drawing human heads. And please let me know in the comments if any of this has helped you. And we'll see you again on the next episode of Art Struggles.